Dolores Huerta helped organize farm workers in the 1960s. She also worked on political campaigns and is still helping move forward efforts to create social change here in the U.S. Correspondent Russell Conchera sat down with the civil rights icon earlier this year. Ms. Huerta was born in New Mexico and grew up in California. She told us about her past work, shared her thoughts on the importance of addressing climate change, and talked about why she is hopeful for the future.
Dolores Huerta, thank you for joining New Mexico in Focus today.
No, I'm glad to be here.
You're 86 years old now. After all these years of activism and protesting and demonstrating, what keeps you going after all these years?
Well, it's the organizing part of it, not so much the protesting, but getting people together, showing people how they can come together and make changes and improve their communities, improve their lives, improve our society.
Even at 86 years old, nothing stops you?
Oh, absolutely, because if you can, the more lives that one can touch, the more people that one can engage, I mean, that is something it's like sowing seeds, and so you want to sow as many seeds of engagement as possible and get people to understand that they have power, because a lot of people don't know that, and that they don't have to wait for somebody to come and make the improvements in their communities for them, that they can actually have the power to do it themselves. They just learn how to come together and how to organize and how to be able to engage with your authorities or your agencies, the people that you have to deal with, and how to put pressure on them also, and how to make those changes, especially when it comes to electoral politics, because we know that ultimately the only way that we can make significant changes is to elect people that are going to make those changes, because otherwise nothing happens. Everything stays the same.
Now, you were an active and vocal supporter of Hillary Clinton for president
Yes.
in the general election and the primary election. How disappointed were you that she lost and that Donald Trump became president?
Well, I think I, like many other people, were shocked. And we know that Hillary actually won by more than 3 million votes, but unfortunately our system that we have with the Electoral College really denied her the presidency. But I believe that America is going to get a really good lesson behind this election, because they have to realize that if some people decide not to vote, that it has really consequences and terrible consequences when we see how much the Trump administration is planning to deregulate and to get rid of so many of the things that people have been fighting for so many years, especially when it comes to issues like climate change and global warming. And these are things that are going to affect the entire world. And so here we elect one person who has a lot of power, and he's in denial. He says that global warming is a hoax, that it's not true. And this endangers, as I say, the entire world. And so I think it's going to wake a lot of people up and because a lot of times they think, oh, let the other guy do it. My vote isn't important. I don't have to be involved. But now we have like a big outcry to everybody and say, we've all got to get involved. If not, things are just going to get worse.
Now, during the Democratic primary season, actress Rosario Dawson, who played you in the movie Cesar Chavez, she was critical of you for your support of Hillary Clinton. She, of course, was supporting her opponent, Bernie Sanders. Did that hurt you? How did you respond to that?
Not really, because I'm used to criticism. And I can understand why Rosario and a lot of the Bernie supporters probably felt that I should have joined them in supporting Bernie Sanders. But I tried to explain to them that, I've been on marches and working in the legislature since I was 25 years old. So many marches, so many protests at the White House and other places. I have never seen Bernie Sanders at one single march or one single legislative attempt that I ever worked on. And so I tried to tell them Hillary Clinton could actually accomplish what Bernie Sanders was talking about. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but Rosario and I are good friends. Okay, so we've made up. I mean, we've talked, and she supports me, and I support her.
Good. Now, this isn't the first political campaign you've been involved in. You, of course, were famously involved in the 1968 campaign for Robert Kennedy, who was seeking the Democratic nomination. He was, of course, talking about poverty and equality. Describe the energy among that campaign.
Well, it was very infectious. It was interesting that when we were doing the Get Out the Vote campaign, going door to door, especially in the Latino, African American community, they had to close the polls early because everybody voted. Every possible voter had actually voted. I mean, I think that was phenomenal. And I don't know if we will see that again, but hopefully we will, that sometime we'll get a candidate like Bobby Kennedy that really, gets people really invigorated and wants them to get out there and work for justice.
And you, of course, were on stage with him during his victory in the Democratic primary in California before the tragedy. Describe the excitement before the tragedy. How was that room electrified?
Well, everything that we went through there in the 60s and the 70s with Richard Nixon as president, with Ronald Reagan as governor of California, and all of the repressive politics that they represented, to see somebody like Bobby Kennedy having the potential to win and knowing with his leadership, the world would have been in a different place. And so I think everyone was really, really behind him. And, we were a very, very divided country at that time. But I like to tell people that if we look back and we reflect, and we see what the country was going through then, and you had the women's rights movement that was going through a second wave, the civil rights movement, all of the excitement that was going on there, especially with the young people, and with Dr. King. And you had the Green Party, the environmental movement was just barely starting, the LGBT movement was just barely starting. And during all of that chaos and turmoil, when Nixon was president, and all of the repression, but then we came out ahead. Because all of those organizations, we see them now, and they're very, very strong. The women's groups are strong, and all the other groups are strong. And I think that's really going to help us be able to deal with the next 4 years under the Trump administration. So sometimes when people get really depressed and they say, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" Well, I think it's going to be a call to activism for everyone. Everybody's got to get involved, and we can look back and see the gains that we made. And of course, now the fight is to keep those gains that we made, so that they're not taken away from us.
And where were you on stage when Bobby Kennedy was shot?
We were at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. And you'd be glad to know that the Ambassador Hotel is now a beautiful educational complex. It's got primary grammar schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. And actually, Trump wanted that particular land there to build a Trump Tower. But people in Los Angeles organized to make sure that it would not become a Trump Tower, and now it's the Robert F. Kennedy Education Complex.
How were you able to continue your activism after the assassination? Most people would think that's an event that would demoralize them. How did you keep going?
Well, we had no choice. At that point in time, we were working on the Great Boycott. We were farm workers who had been on strike for, at that time, like 3 years already, were depending on us to continue forward, and we had no choice. We had to go forward. And that's what Kennedy would have wanted us to do.
And how did you organize and mobilize under Richard Nixon?
Well, we organized actually the way that my foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, the kind of an organizing method that we use, we call it house meetings. And not a house party or a house visit. We actually sit down with people in their individual homes, and we lay out the problems, or they tell us what the problems are that they're having in their community, and we show them proof of how people that look like them, ordinary people, working people, have been able to solve those problems by coming together, taking direct action, and then we ask them to make a commitment. And the question is, do you want to solve the issues here in your community? And they always say yes. But then the next question is, are you willing to do something about it? And they say yes. And then the next question is, okay, how many of you are going to commit if we make an action plan that you will actually come and do the work that needs to be done? And then they will do it. People will come forward, and then that's the way that the leadership is developed.
Can we see that activism that we saw then today?
Oh, I think it's already happening. I think we're seeing it right now. But the one thing that we have to do, when you see all the protests, the Women's March that happened, all of the protests against Trump's Muslim ban that he did on travel, and they're very spontaneous. And people now with the social media, people can come together very, very quickly. But the one thing is that we have to then translate all of that activity into organization. To make sure that people still get together, that they plan, that they go on to the next action, because that's the way that leadership is developed. So just coming together for one particular manifestation isn't enough. It's got to be ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, and then that has to translate into voting. Because again, going back to what I said before, if people don't vote, then you have the same kind of leadership that is responsible, for bringing us backward instead of taking us forward. So we've got to elect progressive leadership, and we get people to run for office, work for them so they can win and make it happen. But the thing is that it's not rocket science. It's just every single individual, taking their share of responsibility to get engaged.
It's 2017. Is the farm worker movement still relevant today?
Well, I think it is. I think when you look at what we won in California for the farm workers, the right to organize, unemployment insurance, disability insurance, workers' compensation, and these are laws that most states still do not have to this day. I mean, you look down 40 years later, New York State, which is a progressive state, farm workers don't have any of these laws. In New Mexico, I know, got workers' compensation finally a few years ago because of the work of some great people that you have here, the legal folks mainly, and the community people coming together. But very, very relevant. I mean, we have to keep on working.
Now, people know you for your activism in California, but a lot of folks don't know that you were born here in New Mexico, Dawson, New Mexico. New Mexico today remains one of the poorest states in the nation. 72% of our kids are born on Medicaid, on Medicare, excuse me. We're still struggling with poverty. What can be done to bring the issue of poverty to the forefront in New Mexico, but nationwide?
What we're doing in California to address some of the similar issues, and I don't know how many millionaires we have in New Mexico. I'm sure we must have some, but in California, we've just passed a tax on millionaires. So if you make $1 million, you have to pay 3% more in state taxes. If you make $500,000, you pay 2% more. And if you make $250,000, you pay 1% more. That has brought into California $9 billion a year, And so I think this is what we have to look at. How can we make sure that the distribution of income so that people have more equality when it comes to income or equity? And I know that there's some wealth in New Mexico, but if it's like every other state, even California, you've got a lot of it at the top and not here at the level of the working people.
It's been more than 2 decades since Cesar Chavez died, your co-founder, United Farm Workers. What can we still learn from him today?
Oh, everything. I mean, Cesar was such a genius. Number one, just respecting people that work with their hands. Cesar only went to the 8th grade. He never got a chance to go to high school, but he was very, very smart. He was a genius, I would say. But yet he committed himself to be poor, like the farm workers, like the people that we were organizing. But he was always self-educated. He was always reading, always listening, always learning from people. Very, very humble person. He really didn't like all of the allocates that they gave him. He always felt a little embarrassed, when they were saying Viva Chavez. I saw him one time wince. I said, Cesar, why are you wincing? He said, because I remember some of the folks that are saying Viva Chavez refused to give me a house meeting. But and he was just a visionary and committed. I mean, anybody who can commit themselves to do 3 fasts, going without eating, 2 of them for 25 days, the last one for 36 days, I mean, that takes so much commitment, and because he wanted people to, number one, hear the message of nonviolence. The second one is to take the hate out of people's hearts. And the third one was for pesticides. And that's the reason he did those fasts. But and he never called them hunger strikes. He always called them, he wanted it to be more of a spiritual offering, like a fast, right? That's why he said it was a fast and not a hunger strike.
What would Cesar say about today, about the President Trump and some of his policies, especially on immigration? What would be his reaction to?
Well, I think his reaction would be pretty much like everybody else's reaction, I mean, we lived under Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. We lived under Pete Wilson, who tried to pass very negative laws against immigrants. So we kind of went through all of that. And the main thing is, with all of these negative people out there, you just keep on working, and just ignore them and do what we can. And with my foundation, we're doing the same thing. We are working to bring equity to our schools. We filed a lawsuit against our local high school district in Bakersfield because of the huge discrimination against African American students and Latino students. And this is happening all over the country, by the way. But the way that we organize, just like we did with the Farm Workers Union and the way we did with my foundation, we organize the parents. And then we get the parents to step up to the schools. We want to look at their budget, see how they're spending their money. We are fighting these disciplinary procedures that they have that are pushing our kids out of school and, making, it's like an apartheid system for our Latino students. And so, I know what Cesar would say. He would say, organize. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to do.
There's been dramatic demographic change since 1968 across the country. Latino population has exploded. Especially places like Boston and Atlanta, places that we never thought. Is it possible that eventually this demographic change will translate to political change?
Oh, it already has. I mean, if we look at California, again, the state that gave us Nixon and Reagan, Kevin De Leon is the head of the Senate. Antonio Rendon is the head of the Assembly. And if you look, across California, so many of our city councils now, Los Angeles to begin with, the majority of them are Latinos. And then we have a huge representation of Latinos in the state legislature. And the same thing, I think, in Texas and other states. Of course, I know New Mexico has always been that way. My dad was an assemblyman, by the way, in the state of New Mexico also. But it's definitely going to happen. Not only that, but I think that the Latino population is actually going to really help the Midwest. There was an article recently in the New York Times about Iowa and how Latinos are kind of re-energizing the state of Iowa. So Iowa's kind of welcoming the immigrants to come in there because they set up their businesses and they really try to make the economy better. And so I think we're going to see that, regardless of what they say about deportations or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, they just cannot stop. Number one, the majority of Latinos in California, for instance, are not from immigration. They're from birth, so we're already here. As we like to say, we didn't cross the border crossed us, right?
As a daughter, as a father of two daughters, what about Latinas? Are we seeing political empowerment among Latinas?
Yes, we actually, again in California, we have several Latinos now that are in the legislature and also not only in the Assembly but also in the state Senate. So that's definitely going to happen. And of course, Nevada just got the first Latina elected there, Catherine Cortez. She's in the Nevada in the U.S. Senate now, representing Nevada. So it's going to happen.
You've had a number of buildings, highways, schools named after you. Here in Albuquerque, you're going to have a park named after you. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I think that's awesome because I know that parks is such an important space, especially for people that live in little houses. And I think that talking about immigrants and the Latino community, they are the ones that really use the parks and that they respect the parks. And I know growing up, I was a Girl Scout, and every summer we had our day camps in the parks, in our city. They're very important to children and to families, and so I feel quite honored that I'm having a park named after me in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
What has been the reaction to the documentary, Dolores Huerta, the film?
It's been very positive. The documentary mainly focuses on my work with United Farm Workers, but the reaction from people that see the documentary is that they want to know more about organizing, and I think that's really the effect that we want to have. Because when people see what the farm workers did, and in today's world, people don't have to go on strike. They don't have to get killed like so many of our people did or go to jail. There's other ways that we can make changes just by voting, right? By getting involved. But I think that the movie is inspirational in that respect.
So you're still hopeful for the future?
Oh, absolutely. No, the future is, yeah. And I think that all of the negative things that we're seeing right now, when people realize that many of these laws that Trump is trying to nullifying to get away with, that it's going to affect their lives in one way or the other. Again, we talk about global warming. My goodness, I mean, this affects the whole world, the whole planet. And we all know that, there has been global warming, that every year it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And it's going to affect everything. It's affecting crops already. And it's affecting people's health, So I think that people are going to start realizing, number one, I think they get the knowledge, they understand what's going on, but then they realize, hey, we've got to do something about this. We just can't sit here and let this happen to us. So I'm hopeful. I think that, we are intelligent human beings, and I believe that the majority of the people in this country have good hearts. They're good people, and they want to do the right thing, but sometimes they're not sure what the right thing is. And the other thing, too, is when we see all of this racism that has been, you might say, put the light on the racism that is very, very visible now, that people are acting on this racism, that at some point, people in authority have got to say, okay, we've got to come together and we've got to put a stop to this. We've got to stop the racism, we've got to stop the sexism, we've got to stop the homophobia, because we are all one human family, and our responsibility as a human family is to one another, to support each other, to protect each other. And we've got to do this. If not, we know as a society, we could not continue to exist. And the only way that human beings ever made it through on this planet, because we compared to all the other animals, we are animals, whether we like to admit that or not. All of the other animals, that are stronger than we are, the human race survived because of the fact that we were together, and I think that's got to be a realization. And in our society right now, people become more and more divided. I mean, people don't know their neighbors anymore, like people used to do in the olden days. And so I think we have some more challenges, but again, as intelligent human beings, I think we can surpass them.
And finally, 15 seconds left, could you tell the spirited activists who are worried about the election, who are not motivated to get involved? What could you tell them?
Well, I would say come to our website, the Dolores Prieto Foundation, and see the work that we're doing, having ordinary people come together, working together to make changes. And just remember that we have to keep the faith in ourselves, keep the faith in each other, and that we could make it happen. We have all the power. We have all the power. And the power is in our individual person. And that's all the power that we need. That's all the power that we need. But we have to come together. We can't do it by ourselves.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
No, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Si se puede.